American pastor Andrew Brunson faces up to 35 years in a Turkish prison after being indicted in the country last month for charges related to terrorism and espionage, which U.S. lawmakers say is a bogus attempt to use the U.S. citizen as a pawn in political negotiations, likened to hostage-taking. Jailed in Turkey since October of 2016, Pastor Brunson was ordered to remain behind bars during a second court appearance on May the 7th, while his case has been adjourned until mid-July. A pair of senators are now leading a bipartisan effort calling for punitive measures against the NATO ally over the imprisonment of Pastor Brunson and other Americans unlawfully held in the country. Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma and Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire join us now from Capitol Hill. Senators, thanks so much for being with us. Senator Shaheen, I'll start with you. I think most Americans are not familiar with the details of Pastor Brunson's case. Can you just lay it out in basic terms why he's being detained?
Well, he's basically being held hostage by President Erdogan, and Erdogan has been so bold as to say, I will trade you your pastor for my pastor, meaning Fethullah Gulen. Pastor Brunson is a missionary in Turkey. He's been there for 23 years, practicing his faith in his church. He has done nothing wrong, and this is a blatant attempt to blackmail the United States, and we are not going to stand for it. And that's why Senator Lankford and Senator Tillis, who has also worked closely with us, are doing everything we can to send a very strong message to Turkey that this is not acceptable. This is our NATO ally. They're supposed to be on our side.
Yeah, Senator Lankford, we expressed some concerns after the hostages that were taken in North Korea came home, used as a bargaining chip, and that being celebrated as positive behavior by North Korea. Are we beginning to see this hostage taking by states, supposed allies and enemies alike, as a new way to bargain with the United States and this administration?
Yeah, this has been ongoing for a while. He has been held since October of 2016, Pastor Brunson has, and the hostages that were in North Korea had been held since 2016 and before as well. So this is a very long-term issue. And I said on the Senate floor just last week, I thought I would never say I want Turkey to act more like North Korea and actually release our hostages. It seems like a very odd thing to say to a NATO ally. You should see the transcripts for the actual trial itself. They're bringing in secret witnesses from prisons and saying, someone else in my prison I heard say something about Pastor Brunson. There's no eyewitness testimony. There's no actual facts here. And all of the people that Pastor Brunson has asked to be able to bring as witnesses, the court is saying those individuals are suspects as well. And so we won't allow anyone to testify on your behalf. So this is a completely invented kangaroo court that's there to try to be able to prove some sort of point against the United States. And again, they've held him since October of 2016. They continue to be able to press in this.
So let me throw this question to both of you, and it has to do with our problem with Turkey. You know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, many people believed that Turkey could possibly be the bridge between Europe and the Middle East. There was great hope, but the situation keeps getting worse. You talk about the religious persecution that you all are fighting. Thank God you are. But also journalists are more repressed in Turkey than any other nation on the face of the earth. You all know that Turkey was the highway through which ISIS got into Syria. What do we do with a problem like Erdogan when Turkey is in such a critical place for American national security concerns?
Well, I think we need to do two things. First, we need to send a very strong message when they act inappropriately. That's why it's important for the president, for Secretary Pompeo, to let them know that human rights violations are not acceptable. And we also need to continue to work with them. As you point out, they are very important. We have a very important air base in Turkey, and we need to try and get them back into the fold, but we need to also let them know when their actions are unacceptable.
Good morning, Senator Shaheen. Peggy Noonan here.
Good morning.
I'm wondering, you are on the Foreign Relations Committee. As you hear what you hear and read what you read, tell me, how do you read Erdogan? What's he about?
Well, I think he was very shaken by the coup attempt in Turkey, and that means that he has doubled down on his authoritarian tendencies. He has, if the elections go through in June and July as we expect, he will be in power until 2029, and he has lashed out against the Kurds, not just in Turkey, where we also have concerns about some of their actions, but he was on a course to try and get a truce with them, which then he turned around and overturned. So I think he has some concerns that we can appreciate about what's happening in his country, but his behavior is not acceptable to address those concerns.
So, Senator Lankford, you're using some American leverage to try to get Pastor Brunson out of this situation. Senator Shaheen, Senator Tillis introduced a bill last month to block the sale and transfer of, I believe it's 116 F-35s, Lockheed F-35s that were to be sold to Turkey. What's the status of that, and what other pressure can you put on Turkey right now?
We're working with the House Armed Services Committee, with the Senate Armed Services Committee for the National Defense Authorization, make some very clear lines here. This is a NATO ally, as Senator Shaheen mentioned, that we've been very close to, that have been someone that we have partnered with on the fight on terrorism, and we understand they're in a very tough neighborhood. They border with Syria. They have terrorists on their border. They have a lot of issues that are there, but it's completely unacceptable what they're doing. So we're putting sanctions on the individuals that are actually trying to convict falsely Pastor Brunson. So those individuals within the court, those individuals within the community, naming them by name to be able to put sanctions on those individuals. We're also trying to be able to cut off military sales to them and to continue to put some American pressure. I would tell you, as an American businessman right now, I would not recommend going to Turkey for business. We have Americans that are picked up, swept up, put in false charges, and put in prison. I could not explain that to one of my employees in the days ahead and to their families why I have an employee in Turkey that's been swept up. So this has been a good place for business. Turkey has changed over the last 2 years, and we need to pay attention to that and not try to increase business and investment there until we know who Turkey is going to be, until we know Americans can be safe.